featured storyteller is Geoff Miethe. And Geoff told a pop-up story at the last Stories from the Heart event and did such a fabulous job that I invited him to come back tonight. So Geoff, when I asked him for a little bit of information about himself, he told me that he doesn't define himself by his profession, but since I asked, he's an actor and a traveller, and he wanted to say lover, but that's a bit creepy. We said it anyway. He loves to travel, he's been on stage, he's been on screen, and he lives with his little cat, Ellie. And Geoff has a story to share with us tonight called The Hairy Man. Let's give it up for Geoff.
I'm not tall, so those at the back, feel free to stand on the chairs if you need to. I come from a big family, 8 kids in my family. Anyone else have 8 kids or big kids? A few big families? Yeah, a couple there. But please don't worry, I'm not going to give the old working class hero story. I mean, that would be just be bored. We don't want to hear about that. Now, one day that changed my life was when I was about 7. It's very early for a life change. My mum came into our bedroom really early, like Dad was working night shifts, and we were the next rung down for the man in the house, me at 7 and my other brother at 10. And she said to us, "Wake up, wake up." We woke up. What? There's a man. He's sleeping on our couch in the lounge room. What? She said, "Come on, get up. Come and tell us who it is." So we were really, I'd never seen that look on my mother's face before. There was something going on and I didn't know what it was. And she pushed us down the hallway and we got to the door and we looked around. And sure enough, on the lounge there was this wild, hairy man fast asleep. I didn't know who he was. I looked at my brother, he didn't know. Mum pushed us out of the way, we were no good to her. So she found out that he was our long-lost brother that had gone away. This was 1970 or 69, 70. And every young man was a hippie then, or in the army. So it was a very counter-revolutionary time. And this guy just had hair everywhere and a big beard, and he was fantastic. And I'd never seen anything like it. It was like an ET or an extraterrestrial that came down like a Martian and went into a little suburban Qrabat public housing house. Now I hung around him like bees to honey. I just followed him everywhere and I couldn't learn enough from him. But one day I had a secret that I couldn't ask anyone else. I had to ask Vaughan. If I asked my parents, they would have just told me I was being a sook. And if I had told this story to my other siblings, they would have laughed at me. So I thought I'll ask Vaughan what to do about this particular problem I had. I said to him, "Vaughan, when I turn the light off in the bedroom, I have to get to the bed. And that's okay, but there happens to be 2 fairly large crocodiles under the bed. And I don't know what to do." And he said, "Well, that's easy, do what I do." And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "Well, if they're crocodiles, you're Tarzan." Yeah, I can do Tarzan. I've done Superman and Batman to great applause and in the backyard. I can do Tarzan at a White Shelling Keys. So I became Tarzan when I turned out the light, and they vanished. Now that was a seminal moment for me, because I found out how to conquer fear at a very young age. I mean, I knew that there was fear. Fear is always there, but if you use your imagination, you can outsmart it. So what happened here is, have you ever heard of the conquistador effect? Have you ever heard of that? It's basically when the conquistadors went to South America and they came in with all their advanced technology, the primitive peoples of the jungle were contaminated with this new knowledge, these new advanced cultures. And what happened with Vaughan was that he contaminated our family with advanced ways of thinking. Because my dad had this castle. My dad's name was George, and he was the king. He was King George, and he had this castle, and it was all very good. And all of a sudden, this Sir Vaughan comes in and upsets it all. So Sir Vaughan had to be banished from the kingdom. So I get on with life, and he gets banished, and a few years go by, and the police come to the door. Now I say, I'm watching and seeing what's going on. It turns out that Vaughan was found dead in a Fitzroy apartment in Melbourne by his own hand. Now that completely threw me. It actually threw the whole family. We were never the same. I was about 11. This was 1974. But enough light had come through from Vaughan to show that there's going to be crocodiles, but it doesn't mean they have to stop me. So I did things like ask myself what I wanted to do. You see, before that, I had to do what my father, what my family had prescribed for me to do. And it was all very traditional role stuff. And that's all very good, except things were changing. And I wanted to do what I wanted to do. So I saved up and I travelled. And at 24 years old, I went overseas and travelled for a year and went to Europe and America and Canada, and I just had a ball. And then when I came back, I thought, well, now what do I want to do? And I thought, I want to be an actor. So I said, I'll try and be an actor. And I was really bad. I stank. But it didn't stop me. I just had to figure out how to get better. And with imagination and perseverance, I got better. So here I am, 54 years old, still fairly short. But I still do things that crocodiles say, you can't do that. Like last year I got a motorbike license and I ride a motorbike. And they say, you can't ride a motorbike. People are 54-year-old men, they die. They die at the highest amount of deaths on motorbikes are 54-year-old men. You can't do that. That's a crocodile talk. And I don't want to be scared of crocodiles. So I do that, and I'm very responsible. Well, sort of responsible. And I just know that Vaughan taught me. Vaughan, he came down for a very brief moment in time. I saw a wild, mystical, magical, hairy, wild man, and I looked up to him, and I felt a love that I'd never felt before, a kind of awe that I had with him. And he showed me that with imagination, anything is possible. Thank you.
Loving the story so far, and Geoff, I don't think you'll mind me sharing, but recently when I caught up with Geoff over coffee to talk through his story, he shared with me when he first met me and when he first came to the event last time, and he said, you know what, when I came to Stories from the Heart last time, I just felt like I belonged. And I think that's something that I hear repeatedly, that it's such a transformational space. So when people come in, they leave feeling somewhat different. And that is the amazing power of live storytelling. This is event number 7. So we are 18 months old, so still in nappies, but we've had 7 events so far. And tonight is a very special occasion because among tonight's speakers is story number 100, hence the balloons. So we were up to 90-something, late 90s, so rather than pinpoint speaker or story number 100, you were all part of the 100th episode where we have had 100 stories on stage so far, which I think is pretty amazing.